So hello everyone and welcome again to today's virtual learning design masterclass. I am both delighted and excited to share some ideas in what I feel is a wonderful subject now, given the pandemic, that is often given little attention to, but extremely important to ensure we succeed in improving the effectiveness of teaching and learning and the level of engagement that is crucial to ensure our learners succeed. Let me get into this masterclass. What exactly are we doing? In outcome one, we will firstly examine characteristics of a modern learner. We will then understand why the modern learner is so susceptible to information overload. Thereafter, in outcome two, as educators and trainers, we seek to understand ways and means to increase retention. To increase information retention, we need to understand the importance of delivering concisely, taking into account learners' cognitive load to arrive at optimal attention. And the last bit of the outcome today, which is the crown of the whole session, I would say, we will look at how these concepts can be placed together to design an effective virtual learning. So let me start by just discussing this idea of a modern learner. Well, the modern learner is not young or not old, doesn't come with age, right? The modern learner is really a connected learner. The modern learner is always on. They are information hungry, at times impatient, overwhelmed, with so much to do, with so little time, short attention span, yet demonstrating collaborative abilities. So just to give you some statistics, right? 100% of those born after 97, they call it Generation Z, are on social media. 90% of those born after 81 to 96, millennials, they say, are on social media. 80% from 65 to 1980 to be exact, they are Generation X. They're also on social media. And in fact, surprisingly, 40 to 45% of those between 46 to 64 or baby boomers are on social media. So in short, the world has really become very small. We are so connected now in one way or the other. So in effect, I would say we are all modern learners. Well, to get this whole idea into perspective, let's try and understand this from a little survey point of view. I'm just going to launch a poll. And if you can just click on your screen, what comes best to your mind? It's a series of check boxes. You will see that poll flash onto your screen right now. All right, I see most of you have responded. So just take another 10 seconds or so, and then we will share the findings for all of us to see. Okay, let's see. What have we got here? Just a few more responses trickling in. All right, another 5 seconds maybe. All right, let's see what we got. Interestingly, Most of us here shared saying we like the flexibility to access content anywhere, anytime. A lot of you also said you like solving on-the-spot problems or find answers by accessing smartphones. Our good friend Google is ever there, very reliable. All right, brilliant. So this is really what I get oftentimes in many sessions. So I thank you for that session, because that gives us an idea that truly we are in fact modern learners. But modern learners today are being flooded with so much information, right? Just to give you a perspective of things, Google handles 5.6 billion searches per day. On an average, we touch our smartphones 2,617 times. Now that includes all the messages, right? The chat messages, so that counts. That's mind-boggling. When I saw this the first time, it was quite shocking. And our poor brain, working so much, uses 20% of the total calories we consume, although the brain itself, not the head, the brain itself weighs only 2% of the total weight, consuming 20% of all calories we need for the body. The question is, are we victims of information overload? Now, before you respond yes or no in the chat, if the answer to any of the things I'm going to tell you right now is a yes, then you are a victim of information overload. The first thing I would ask you is, so you can just go on a chat and just say yes for anything. If it's true for anything for you, just get to the chat and just say yes. Do you switch between your work? Say you're doing something and you end up checking your messages and you go and checking your Facebook, Instagram, your emails and whatnot. Do you keep switching? Do you have this thing called a decision fatigue? You have trouble making decisions sometimes? Do you sometimes have this, sort of low energy level because you've been bombarded with just so many things that you can't manage and comprehend? Do you have issues of comprehension and recall? So yes, go on to the chat, type yes. Obviously you can type no as well. Oh, brilliant. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Okay, so thank you. I get someone saying today was an off day until 8:30. All right. So thank you, everyone. I think that's an overwhelming yes for everybody. So let's understand this. What is information overload? Let's put it this way. The input coming into our working memory, the mind, is more than what it can process, right? So think of it as if the input is not equivalent to the processing. And this causes a problem, right? Because this actually reduces your cognitive performance. But some people tell me, Sanat, it's okay lah, I can manage information overload, I can multitask. Well, according to research, only 1 out of 40 person can multitask, and that's only 2.5% of the population. Now, they are called the super taskers. Now, I don't know about you. I personally know for a fact that I am not capable of multitasking. So, ladies and gentlemen, information overload is a real thing. If we ourselves are victims of information overload, imagine our learners. How many times have we ourselves gone for presentation, switching off or shutting off? You're there, but not there, right? Your mind is elsewhere. Surely our learners might be feeling the same way sometimes, if not all the time. These are learners who are coming into our training, into our classes, already inundated with so much going into their minds. And let me ask and impress all upon here that let's not make it any more difficult for them. So that sets us to the next part. We need to now deliver our training and teaching in a way that our learners are able to retain what we're teaching them. That's retention, right? Retaining what we're teaching them. Learning cannot take place if our learners cannot retain what we have taught because of their reduced cognitive performance caused by information overload. So let's keep this simple. Forget about all the terms I'm talking to you about. If it seems very techie stuff, right? Just forget about all of those. Forget the jargons. The opposite of retention is forgetfulness. All I'm saying is, while we do not have control over our learners' ability to learn, we can use some strategies in our teaching and learning to increase retention, because retention is linked to learning. Increase in retention correlates to increase in learning. So let's look at some strategies to increase information retention, because we want that, right? And there are three broad strategies I will be sharing with you: value, reinforce, retrieve. Now, before I move on, I just want to check if everybody's okay. Are we okay with what's being presented so far? Can I just get an okay or a thumbs up, whichever is convenient to you, on the chat? All right, thank you so much. So what I'm doing now is I'm reinforcing that I know that you've got what I think you should be getting, right? That's the first thing. All right, so let's look at the first thing, right? The first strategy. So remember, we are talking about 3 strategies to increase information retention. And why we're doing that? Because retention is connected to learning. And if we can get our students to remember and retain what we taught them, we have a far better chance of getting them to excel in whatever we want them to excel. So the first strategy is value. Value talks about seeing things from the learner's perspective, right? Oftentimes we use our own lens and decide what's good for them. But if I'm the learner, I would probably be asking, why must I learn this? So what? I know the feeling as a trainer or educator, we always feel the need to provide our learners enough information. But guess what? We're just giving them too much too soon. What exactly do they need? That's the big question. See it from their perspective. Understand it from their lens. And you will know why they think the way they think, right? Now, one of the best ways to add value, that's strategy 1, is to inject passion and interest in what you're doing. Now, how do you inject emotions? How do you demonstrate that? Now, demonstrating emotion is not a sign of weakness. Demonstrate your energy. Demonstrate humor. Share your personal experience and experience of others you know. And give good examples. Connect the dots. And even if you can't do any of this, the simplest advice I would give is just add images, faces, and pictures. It will go a long way to stir up the right emotions. And still on the subject of value, your learners are not just there to listen to you, right? They're also watching you. So I call that the stated and unstated goals. The stated ones are the ones that you're teaching there, the subject matter. Say, for example, you're teaching law, then your subject matter would be the stated goals, the subject of law. But they're also there actually to understand the unstated goals. They're looking at how do you connect to them. You know, like when I do training, the feedback I get very often is not so much the content that I've shared with them, but it's more towards the thing like, you know, Sanat was very patient with us. He was able to explain clearly. He was able, you know, he can connect to us. He was fun. He understood what we're trying to say. So this is what I mean by the unstated goals. So let's also remember that this is very important. So let's look at what the research says. 88% of valuable content after 1 month is remembered, but they do not remember the 89% obviously of non-valuable content. Now let me qualify this. Non-valuable content does not mean it's useless. It's content perceived by the learner as not valuable. That's shocking, because something could be actually valuable, but perceived as a non-value content and is therefore not remembered. So therefore, it is important for trainers and teachers. Our role is to make these valuable, relevant, and valuable for their point of view. So that's the first strategy, right? Value talks about the significance from their perspective, the emotions, and the stated and unstated goal. Strategy 2, reinforce. Now, remember, we talked about information overload earlier, and that has caused reduced cognitive performance. By repeating, we are reinforcing what we need to say. And I would always suggest to people that the simple formula would be, say what you've just said and say what you're going to say. For example, say what we just did was this, and what we're going to do now is this, and what we're going to do next is this. So it's always the past, present, future. So you keep repeating this, you're connecting the dots, right? Another thing we do is repetition, right? And what you could do is perhaps even have a simple task. Like, for example, I just did a survey now, right? I just flashed a survey, a poll, a quiz, and you guys tick something. That is a simple example of reinforce. A quick thing you do to apply the concept fast, not too long. And back to the research, it says 55 or 59% of valuable information is forgotten in a week without reinforcement. So imagine 59% forgotten in a week without reinforcement, 95 to 98 remembered with reinforcement. So that's how powerful this is. I'm just taking this off established research work published in leading journals. So you see the power of reinforcement that I'm sharing with you. So we looked at the first one, value. We're seeing the second one now, reinforce. And we move on to the third one, that is retrieval. Let me give an example. You could say, explain the 3 different strategies to increase information retention. So that will be an application of what they have learned, and that is retrieval. You are rehearsing or allowing them to recall. Or you could get them to watch a video of someone presenting a topic, then ask them, reflect which of these strategies, whether it's value, reinforce, or retrieval, that was used by the presenter. So they're applying that, and that's retrieval. And if you do that, research says learners who took more practical tests forgot lesser. That's interesting, guys. The more practical tests you do, you forgot lesser. And those who did lesser obviously forgot more. So this goes to show that the more retrieval methods we use, whether it's reflection, case study application, an exercise that we get into, the more the learning. Okay, so we covered 3 strategies. And in short, what we're trying to say is retention needs these 3 things, right? Value, reinforce, retrieval. Right, I'm just going to stop here, and I'm going to ask everyone if you have any questions up until now. You can feel free to put it up on the chat box. Absolutely, Suresh. Learners always look for quick facts which presented in viral news. Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah. We want them to come out of that comfort zone, right? We want them to start reflecting, right? Because we don't want information on surface value. That's what we always used to viraling everybody's post, right? Or quick sharing everybody's post. Good. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone on the floor? Keep the questions coming. We will check them from time to time because I wanted this to be engaging as well. Brilliant. Okay, so I'll wait for more questions to come. Meaningful task. Is it about difficulty or else? That's an absolutely good question. In fact, there was one research finding. This is a question from Adrianus Vijaya. So Adrianus was asking, if I hear you correctly, the level of difficulty you have for your retrieval question actually correlates with the amount of retention too, right? So which means if you put in a case study that actually gets them to really think hard and connect the dots and bring in some thought processes into the discussion, they will obviously be remembering more and the retention is going to be higher. That's a good question. So in short, what we just said was value coming from the learner's perspective. So we should always look at the learner's perspective in mind, even though we have our learning outcomes. It has to be skewed from their perspective as well. So that the onus is us to do that, right? Stated and unstated, emotionally charged, you've got repetition coming in, meaningful task, right? That's what Adrianus was asking. And obviously, when you come up with a reinforcing question, try and connect it to what you just did, because if it's too far off, then they will have trouble connecting the dots. And obviously, retrieval. So now I'm going to do a bit of retrieval for us, since we're talking about retrieval, right? So I have a bit of a quiz now. I'm just going to flash the poll. And I would love if you could just state your answers there. So we are doing retrieval now, the application of what we just learned on increasing information retention. Okay, maybe we can take another 30 seconds. Okay, let's take another 15 seconds. Some questions seems a bit tricky for some of you. We will discuss them. Okay, I'm just going to share the findings. All right, so let's have a look at what everybody has done. So the first question, which of the following reflects strategy 2? When you reinforce, it's usually a simple task, right? And you don't really have to spend too much time in it because it's supposed to be quick. Retrieval is a bit more longer, a bit more in-depth. So the answer is C. Most of you got that correct. Reinforced activity is usually done before retrieval, absolutely, because you want them to connect the basic ideas before getting into the more advanced questions. So that's true. Number 3, showing care, concern and empathy and so on. It's obviously strategy 1, value, because that's very important. And number 4, we have, seems like a tricky one for most of you. Retrieval is best used for quick understanding. Usually retrieval is used for a more elaborate application type questions, right? So retrieval is used for application questions. That's B, right? So most of you didn't get that right. So think of reinforce as something quick, something small, something you want to quickly check whether they've got it. And think of retrieval as an application of something. So retrieval usually need more time, takes a bit more effort. And usually you want them to, say, connect it to a case study or an exercise that needs a bit more time. All right, so with that, let's continue. So this is the concept that I want everyone to keep in mind, that I call it keeping your materials and content to the bare minimum, deliver concisely. Now, personally, I had this challenge many times. And I think as a trainer, right, I always wanted to give out a lot of stuff. It's hard to cut down. And I think some of us are like that, right? And, you know, you think it's all important for my students and I'll just, you know, if I'm going for a training, they must know all of this. It's important, it's important, it's important. Now, let me switch from that perspective to a student point of view. As a learner, I'm sitting down here thinking and sifting in my mind, understanding what's important for me. As a trainer, I'm covering so much and I'm presenting loads of information overload. And my students are confused as to what's important and what's not. And I'm fluttering the whole message. What message I'm driving across? So it's important for us to understand the purpose of the training is to allow engagement and to allow that interaction to take place. Anything that is non-engaging, that does not warrant too much discussion, can be moved out before the session as pre-reading or after the session as post-reading. So you want to reduce your slides and just do the ones that you think deserves engagement, because those are the concepts that you really want them to get right. And this may not come easy, I know, to some cultures, because, you know, students are so used to them having that one PowerPoint slide, everything is in there, and you just study the slides and it's all there. But here I'm telling you, don't do that. Have the bare minimum. Use that time to discuss, to engage, to get into some very meaningful discussion and move contents that are non-engagement type activity to pre-reading that they can do on their own. Obviously, you need some discipline because most students may not be used to that, but over time, they will get it. So keep that in mind, deliver concisely. And that's connected to the second part of my discussion today, this idea of cognitive load, right? Now, this idea of cognitive load theory was popularized by this gentleman, Professor Sweller, in 1988, as a matter of fact, from Sydney. Now, he said this: our working memory has a limited capacity of holding about 5 plus 2 items. That means it can range from 3 items to 7 items at any given time. This is an average person, right? So which means anything more than 7 for an average person would be beyond one's cognitive limit. It's too much to handle. So what does it mean for us as a trainer or teacher? I must start arranging 3 to 7 topics at most in logical order. Now, here's the problem. Remember, we spoke about cognitive performance that is reduced because of information overload. Today's learners, whether young adults or adults, are increasingly distracted from handphones, social media, and many other intrinsic and extrinsic distractions, which means what? Their cognitive load is already high. That means they were already inundated with so much of content and their load is high. So if I am a teacher and a trainer, I know about this. I should accept this fact that people who are coming to our classes, they are already inundated with this load. And what should I do? If you ask me, I will stick to the lower limit. I will go with just 3 items in one stretch. Even though you could go as much as 7, but in one stretch, design your lesson, your structure of your lesson, so that you can allow 3 topics at most in one stretch. Not 7, because they already come with that cognitive load, but you do 3, knowing that they're coming with the load, right? Not too much. So keep that in mind, because when we start balancing this load between what's in their head and what we're giving them, so we're balancing this cognitive load, we call this optimal attention. And it really means we're talking about 3 topics in a 15-minute stretch of time. So 3 for 3 topics, 1-5 for 15 minutes, as a switch. Now I'll talk to you about what switch is in a while after this. But all I want you to understand is, say, for example, if you have a 1-hour training or a lesson, you should generally try to split it. Of course, there's no hard and fast rule. You can have 15-20, 15-10. But in general, let's make it simple for the purpose of the discussion today. Split it to 4 parts of 15 minutes each. I'll talk to you about the merits about this, why we're doing it. So you now don't look at 1-hour lesson as 1 hour, but you look at it in 4 minuscule 15 minutes chunk or intervals. So what exactly happens in optimal attention? So in this 15 minutes, this 15 minutes teaching time, right? Remember, we're going to break it up into 15 minutes. What happens within that 15 minutes? Now, as I've said earlier, as per optimal attention, we introduce 3 topics, and you can see 3 topics here. Now, virtual learning experts have suggested keeping the length of these topics to 4 minutes, followed by some reinforcement. So you have that 1 minute as reinforcement, right? So here you have 3 topics sandwiched by quick reinforcement activity, in this case, 1 minute. But some of you are asking me, Is it possible for us to have 1 minute reinforcement? I'm sure some of you are already thinking that question in your mind. Now, let me preempt your thought. There are loads of things you can do. For example, you can reply in chat like what I just did. Say okay, not okay. You could share a joke, a quick one. You could ask them a question. If you want them to unmute, you could, or you can have them posted on the chat. You can ask them to do thumbs up, thumbs down. These are all reinforcement activities. You can call out someone randomly if you think you want them to say something, or you could have a poll, a quick one, a 1 minute poll, or you could just be silent. I love this, right? Just be quiet. Just allow all of it to sink in, to connect. And how nice is that? Because when they start to connect, you can also rest. You can catch your breath because you're also relaxing. So this is optimal attention, right? And once again, I'm just going to ask if everybody is okay and if there are any questions per se that we have. I know we have a question time at the end, but I prefer to have this question in between the sessions. So that makes the question more contextual. Yeah, someone says you remind yourself of flipped learning. Yes, June, it takes a bit of time because, our students are very culturally used to something different. So any change we bring about does require a bit of, shaking up sometimes. Thank you. I give some feedback here. Yep. Thank you, Sharon. I'm just doing that. I'm just breaking up the session, trying to get everybody reinforcing the ideas. Absolutely. Brilliant. So let me get into the next part. Okay. Okay, we've got the quiz now. Let's see if we can do some retrieval activities. So earlier we did some reinforcing. Now we do some retrieval. Okay, so you can try these questions now on your screen. Just 3 questions this time. Okay, we can take another 30 seconds. Okay, question 2, my apologies, was supposed to be an option where you have, I am to break a session into intervals of 15 minutes. So there's no correct answer there. You can give that a miss. Okay, so let's discuss the answers now. All right, so yes, I think all of you got the first question right. It's obviously advisable for you to keep your content bare minimum because you want to have engagement, and leave all the other stuff that can be just left for their pre-reading before the session, or something else that needs to be done after the session as homework. Number 2, there was an error on my part. The answer was supposed to be break a session into short intervals of 15 minutes, 1-5. Number three, yes, most of you got it right. You need to reinforce activity before going to the next topic, right? Because you want them to get it right before you move on to the next one. And like I said, it can be just as easy as asking them a question, or maybe just having a quick poll, or yes or no, or stuff like that. All right, so now we're getting to the last part of the session today, which is the main part of what I want you to take back with you. And that's how do you bring all of this that we have learned together into this designing of your virtual learning session. And let's assume that we have a 90 minutes virtual presentation, right? We have 90 minutes. So how do we break down our 90 minutes now? So the first breakdown, let's say, for example, I've got 3 topics. You can see the time there. I've got 1 minute interval. I'm teaching something, right? I'm teaching something, fine. But the 1 minute you see here, those are the reinforced activities, right? You reinforce. After one topic, you reinforce. After one topic, you reinforce. Once you've done the teaching, the next one will be the retrieval. That means you want them to apply these concepts in some little case study. So in online mode, what do? You can have breakout rooms. You can use other tools like Miro. You can use breakout rooms to have them discuss and come up with something conclusive. And my suggestion is when you have breakout rooms, don't just leave it for discussion. Make it output driven. That means have a template for them to fill up and for them to share and discuss with a larger group. And then you go back to teaching again. You notice how I'm moving on, right? Teach, breakout, teach, case study, that's retrieval again, right? So you're not going to teach all the time. You teach, then you've got retrieval activity. You teach and you've got retrieval activity. And then you teach and you have a demo, for example. You can mix and match, right? Make it creative. Now you notice that my timing is not exactly 4 minutes. I have sometimes 7 minutes. Why? Because some topics are just long. You can't have it over 4 minutes. So it's okay, right? But try to keep the session length 15 minutes, but topics within that 15 minutes could vary in its duration, right? That's fine. Now, do you notice that I am having teach, breakout, teach, case study, teach, demo? This is called switch, the S, right? You're switching between different activity types. So you have 3 topics, if you have to have 3, sometimes you have 2, 15 minutes, switch. Okay, so that's what we call a switch. And some of you may ask this question, and if you do virtual live training like I do, I'm a full-time trainer, and some of my training stretches over 3 days, 9 to 5 over 3 days. Now you can apply the same principle, break it down into 15 minutes chunk, which I do, but you have to introduce a 10 minutes break every hour. And now that's important if you're doing a 9 to 5 training on Zoom or Teams or whichever platform. You need to have that 10 minutes break every hour, because this is to prevent what we call as Zoom fatigue. So far, they've not come up with Google Meet fatigue yet. There's no such term, but I'm sure it's the same thing. Right, so that's the only exception. You follow the same rule. If it's a 3-day or long day sessions, break it up, but have very, very frequent intermittent breaks. And I just want to share with you something interesting. And I have presented this for you to see. Now, this is exactly what I've done for today's session, right? I'm structuring this presentation. I have structured it actually this way for this session that I'm doing with you right now, right? So the timing you see, like the tool I've used in most cases, Zoom poll, chat. Of course, if I had a smaller group, I would use other tools like Miro and Padlet to have more engagement. In a smaller group, I would have allowed everybody to speak. But because today we have close to 100 participants here, so we probably would not be able to do that. But otherwise, it would have been very different. So what I'm saying is that um, you can use this concept and structure your own virtual learning design using the ideas that we just shared with you, right? Having the intermittent reinforcement, having the retrieval after that, keeping it in small, short stretches, intervals, 50 minutes. That is the best practice. Question. Perhaps need a longer break? Yes, Lin Lim is asking. Yes, obviously I do have the lunch breaks and so on. That's obviously the longer break. You have 1 hour lunch break, but I'm talking about the interim breaks, right? For example, you start at 9 and you finish at 10, then you have a 10 minutes break at 10:10. Then 10:10 you go on to 11:10, then you have another break from 11:10 to 11:20. And then you finish at 12:30, about 1 hour lunch break. So you do have a lot of breaks. That's very important. Yes, you have the luxury of 15 minutes. That's brilliant. Junos, I use Miro. That's spelled as M-I-R-O. M-I-R-O. Thanks, Sheila. That's a brilliant tool. It works really well. Thank you, Didi, for sharing the link. Does it work when it's asynchronous lessons? No, Hayati, I would think so in most cases. However, when you have, say, the use of Miro, and how I use it is I get them to go to their link and they have to do something, and then they share it with the larger group. So it becomes more engaging. That becomes a bit tricky if it's asynchronous. But you can still do it in a way because you can use some examples and best practices to simulate the same thing. All right. I'm just seeing everybody's answer. I see some of you had some challenges earlier submitting. Nilufa, thank you. You're presently implementing a flip model with a set of students and you're giving you great insights. That's brilliant. Flip teaching. What kind of tasks you suggest for retrieval? Nilufa, you have the question. For retrieval, because you have a bit more time, sometimes your retrieval could go up to 30 minutes, right? If it's really significant work. The best way of retrieval to have them apply the concept in a particular context. You could have a case study, or if you think you want them to do a little bit of development work, if you're doing some programming, then that's what you do. If you want them to apply the concept, make it contextual, make it real. Siva Sangari, how do you attach a quiz while you're presenting? In Zoom, you can do that because you can pre-add those questions before the session. And during the session, all you have to do is to load that quiz, like what I've done right now. These quiz were prepared in advance earlier. Nilufa, can students plan out a demonstration or presentation for retrieval? Obviously, that's what they should do. In fact, if you have tools that can allow you to do that, you have them break out in Zoom. They can have their own PowerPoint and they can share within the group. And then when they come back to the main group, they can present to everybody else. So I really suggest that when you have breakout sessions in your online virtual session, always make sure there is some output driven. Never get them to just discuss and come back and talk, because you want something concrete. Even if it's a discussion, ask them to pen down their thoughts or write it down in some place. All right, so that's great questions coming in. So I'm just going to end the session with something that I think is so important, because learning never stops. And after every training, I ask 3 questions. The first question, what should I stop doing? The second question, what should I start doing? The third question, what should I continue doing? Because there's some things that don't work that you might want to stop it. There's some things that work you want to continue. But perhaps there's something new that you can do that you did not do. Now, how do you know that? By getting feedback from your respondents. Now, the feedback is so important. So that's exactly what I will be doing today. I would want to get your feedback as well, and because that is useful for me as a trainer to keep improving. So let me summarize the session today. We looked at quite a few things, and let me make it a bit more diagrammatic. We looked at, firstly, the modern learner, right? And this modern learner is inundated with so much information. And therefore, as teachers and trainers, we must be aware how to increase information retrieval, value, reinforce, and retrieval. And we looked at delivering concisely, and we then understood learners' cognitive load. They already come with that load. So we need to devise optimal attention. And we looked at the 3-15-S strategy, having that in small chunks within 15 minutes. And we put all of this together in our virtual learning design. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for your time today. And I hope you've taken something back with you to help you design effectively for your own course and for your own program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanat, for your engaging talk. You have claimed that you have given this talk for like 3 days, and now we have only received the tip of your iceberg, only about an hour of the sessions. So I believe there will be more to come, and I pass it on to Prof. Sheila, if you have anything to say from your school.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Xiao. Thank you very much, Dr. Sana. Okay, I thank you all the audience take time to join us tonight. Okay, so here I would like to introduce to you because Dr. Sana is our alumni, and we also in our SPEAK. SPEAK actually stands for is the school of the professional and continue education, or sorry, executive education. So it's SPEAK. It is actually part of the one of the school in ASEAN University. However, in order to provide the market demand and also the industries driven courses, so SPEAK has acquired its corporate identity this year, and it will work closely with its partners in order to jointly promote or develop market-driven courses such as, like, say, micro-credentials. And SPEAK actually will be act as a bridge the gap between the academics and also the industries. Okay, so in another word, very short, which you will understand, is actually SPEAK is the training arm or the corporate training arm of the ASEAN University. Okay, so we will continue to engage with our partners in order to conduct more courses, which is market driven. So these are the partners which we have it. So let's say PICOM, DIPTA, DHS, all these in different industries, like say IT industry, human resources industry, hospitality. We even have the music as well. So we and the EWAA is a wellness. So other than, like say, Dr. Sanat just now mentioned about the more serious, which is talking about learning design, we also have others as well. So you will notice that we have many different partners and different areas to provide the market demand and the industry driven courses. Okay, please move to. So okay, here, because just now you only hear about Dr. Sana mentioned about sorry, is the tips of the course only. So actually there are many other techniques which Dr. Sana will be able to share with you. Many like say help you to master the best techniques for effective virtual presentation. Also sorry, you will be able to discover some of the unique practices in order to engage with the virtual learners. Okay, so these are particularly designed for this online learning. Okay, especially now we are very much into this virtual learning, and it will also introduce to you is like how to use this technology platform in order to optimize the virtual learning outcomes and also results. So he has this course in 3 days. So if you would like to learn more, then probably you can, contact us. Okay. So he has only limited to 15 packs per session. So in order to, to maximize, optimize the effectiveness of the delivery and also the tutoring. And after the course, actually, he will also have the follow-up and also the evaluation feedbacks with you as well. Okay, so would like to know more, please contact us for more details about Dr. Sanak's course. This is a virtual learning design. Okay, so please, next slide, Dr. Sanak. Okay, so here, for those of you would like to looking into the partnership with AEUs and also the speed, please contact us at the speed training at aeu.edu.my. So we welcome the corporate partnership. If you doing some of the corporate training or you are in different industries, please contact us and we can collaborate to develop some of the course, or we can offer you some of the programs as well. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and attention for tonight. We will be having more this kind of the series in the coming future. So Miss Swalili, she will be handling the this kind of the course, working together with us as well. Okay, thank you very much.